Hi and welcome to our new YouTube tutorial. In this video we're going to be creating a 3D sign-in and sign-up forms. The project is going to be created based on HTML, CSS and JavaScript, so I hope that you already know some basic stuff about those technologies. Let's go ahead and describe the project. As you can see, we have here a sign-in form by default with a full screen background image. At the top left corner of the form we have the button which is displaying the text sign up. If I click it, then the form will rotate in a 3D environment and the sign up form will be displayed. If I click the sign in button, we will get back the sign in form. So you can switch forms with those buttons in 3D space. Okay, so that's it about this project. I have created a new folder on the desktop called 3D forms, in which I have another folder called images. It includes the background image. Let's go ahead and open this folder in VS Code and then create our working files for HTML, CSS and JavaScript. I'm going to call the files index.html, then style.css and script.js. Then open the index.html file and create a basic HTML document. For that I'm going to use emmet. We have to place an exclamation mark and then press tab or enter. So here we have the basic HTML tags. First of all, let's change the title. I'm going to call it 3D forms. And then I'm going to link the CSS and JavaScript files. Let's open the link tag and specify here in the href attribute the path of the file. As for the JavaScript file, I'm going to open script tag right above the closing body tag, and then we need to specify the name of the file in the source attribute. Alright, lastly, I'm going to run the project to the browser using one of the VS Code packages called Live Server. It allows us to run the project live and make the updates and changes without refreshing the page each time. Before we start to write the code, I'm going to place the editor and the browser side by side. Alright, let's go ahead and start to create the HTML markup. I'm going to open a div tag which is going to be the container. Next we need another div tag. It will wrap both forms, so I'm going to assign to it class forms wrapper. This element will consist of two different elements. Two different form elements. The first one is going to be sign in form. So let's open the form tag with the class sign in form. So each form element will include a button, heading and the inputs. Let's open the link tag. It's going to be the button. Let's assign to it class signup_btn. I used here sign up because this button will help us to navigate to the sign up form. Alright, next we need heading. Let's open h2 heading tag with the content sign in. After that I'm going to insert here input elements. Let's open the div tag which will be the wrapper. Let's assign to it class input wrapper. So overall we will have three different input elements for email, password and submit button. Let's open input tag with the type text and with placeholder attribute your email. Then I'm going to duplicate this line of code. This input field will be for the password, so let's change the type attribute, make it password, and also change the value of the placeholder attribute. We need again password. The next input element will be for the submit button, so the type is going to be submit. We don't need here placeholder attribute. Instead of that we need value sign in. Okay, and that's it about the first form element. Let's go ahead and duplicate the entire form and then make some changes. We need here the class name sign up form. Then the button is going to be sign in. Also let's change the content of the heading. We need sign up. In the case of the sign up form we will have 5 different inputs. The first one is going to be for the name. So we need here your name. And also we will have one input for password confirmation. Let's change here the placeholder insert here confirm password. And lastly, let's change the value of the submit button. Use here sign up. Alright, that's it regarding HTML markup. Now it's time to customize the project. Let's open the CSS file and first of all create some default and reset styles. I'm going to select every element using an asterisk. First of all, I'm going to get rid of default margin and padding. Let's go ahead and set both properties to 0. Then I'm going to make box sizing, border box. Also, I'm going to get rid of default underline from the link elements. Let's set text decoration none. And then change the font family. I'm going to use here font called Arial with the font group sans serif. Throughout this project, we're going to use rem as the measurement unit. Right now, 1 rem equals 16 pixels because the font size of the HTML element is equal to 16 pixels. I'm going to convert 1 rem to 10 pixels, and for that we have to decrease the font size of the HTML element. Let's make it 62.5%. Alright, so the elements became smaller. Next I'm going to take care of the container. Let's select it and define its width and height. I'm going to set width to 100%. As for the height, I'm going to make it 100% of the viewport, therefore we need here 100 ph. Then I'm going to set the image as the full screen background. Before that, I'm going to use linear gradient function because I want to make the background image a little bit darker. Let's use here RGBA value 31.7.7 and the opacity 0.7. As for the second RGBA value, it's going to be the black color with the opacity 0.7. Next, I'm going to specify the URL of the image. We have the folder called images in which we store image called bg.png. The position is going to be center, and also we need no repeat. Finally, I'm going to set the background size to cover. Alright, so here we have the full screen background image, and actually that's it regarding the container. Now we have to start to customize the forms. I think would be better if we hide one of the forms for a while and style just one form. So let's go ahead and hide the second sign up form. Then select forms wrapper. I'm going to center the wrapper on the page. So let's set its position to absolute. Then we have to define top and left properties. Let's make both of them 50%. And then in order to center the element perfectly on the page, we have to use transform translate. We have to move elements by -50% on both directions, I mean x and y axis. So as you can see, the form is placed in the center of the page. Next, I'm going to customize the form itself. So let's select forms wrapper, followed by the tag name form. First of all, let's define width and height. I'm going to set width to 50 rem. The height is going to be 35 rem. And also change the background color. I'm going to use here RGBA value 41.14.108, and then the opacity 0.925. Alright, next I'm going to align the elements inside of the form using Flexbox. We need display flex. Then we have to change the direction because we need to place the elements vertically, so we need flex direction to be column. Then in order to create some space around the elements, we need justify content space around. And also in order to center the elements horizontally, we need align items center. Lastly, let's create a little shadow effect. I'm going to create shadow on all 4 sides. So I'm going to use the following values. We need 0.1 rem 3 times. Then the color CCC. And also I'm going to use here value called inset. It allows us to create the shadow inside of the element. Next we need minus 0.1 rem twice, then 0.1 rem with the same color C, and with the same value in set. Alright, that's it regarding form element for now. Next I'm going to style the individual elements. Let's start with the sign up button. I'm going to select it using tag names form and A. Let's define its position as absolute, and then set top and left properties, both of them to 2 rem. So as you can see, the button is positioned correctly. Let's go ahead and style it. First of all, I'm going to change the background color. Let's make it white. Also, I'm going to make the text bolder using font weight with the value 600. Then let's transform text into uppercase. Also, I'm going to change the color. Let's use RGBA value 40, 114, 108. And also create some space between the letters. Make it 0.2 rem. Alright, after that I'm going to create some space inside of the button using padding. Let's set padding to 0.5 rem at the top, then 1 rem on the right side, 0.5 rem at the bottom, and 3 rem on the left side. And finally, we need to change the shape of the button using border radius. It will take 4 different values. The border radius at the top left corner is going to be 100%. Then we will have 0.5 rem at the top right corner. Bottom right corner is going to be 0.5 rem. As for the bottom left corner, it's going to be 100%. Okay, that's it about the button. Let's move on and customize the heading. Select Form H2. First of all, let's set the font size, make it 2.3 rem. Make the text uppercase. Also create some space between the letters, make it 0.2 rem, and then change the color, make it white. Okay, so the heading is customized, and now we have to take care of the inputs. Let's go ahead and select Input Wrapper. We need to place the inputs vertically on top of each other, so we need to use Display Flex and Flex Direction column. Next, I'm going to select the input itself. Let's define width and height. I'm going to set width to 25 rem. As for the height, it's going to be 3 rem. After that, I'm going to create some space inside and also outside of the inputs. Let's use padding with the values 0.5 rem at the top and bottom and 1 rem on the left and right sides. As for the margin, it's going to be 0.5 rem at the top and bottom and 0 on the left and right sides. Next, let's change the background color. I'm going to make it transparent. Also, let's create border with values 0.1 rem, solid, and the color white. And also make the inputs rounded using border radius with the value 5 rem. Okay, so the inputs already look good, but we need to add a couple of more styles to them. Let's change the color, make it white. Also create some space between the letters, make it 0.1 rem. And then get rid of default outline. Set it to none. Alright, so that's it about the inputs. Next I'm going to change the color of the placeholder. We need to select at first wrapper, followed by the input and the pseudo element placeholder. Let's set color to white and also change the font weight, make it 300. Alright, lastly, I'm going to customize the submit button. Let's select input with type attribute. At first, let's change the background color, make it white. Then the color is going to be RGBA value 40, 114, 108. Let's increase the font weight, make the text bolder, set font weight to 900. Also transform text into uppercase. And finally, change the type of the cursor, make it pointer. Alright, that's it regarding sign-in form. It is customized. Now we have to display the sign-up form and make both forms work. So let's go to the index.html file and display back the second form. As for the first form, I'm going to hide it for a while. So the only thing that we have to do about the sign-up form is to customize the sign-in button. We have to move it to the top right corner of the form, and also we have to change the shape of the button. The direction should be to the right side. Right now we have common styles for both buttons, so I'm going to select both buttons separately and define their individual styles. First of all, I'm going to select sign up btn. Then let's grab left property from the common styles. Also, I'm going to grab padding and the border radius. Then I'm going to duplicate this code. Let's change the class name. We need here sign in btn. Also, we need to change left into right. Then we need different padding. It's going to be 0.5 rem, 3 rem, 0.5 rem, and 1 rem. And also we need different border radius. The values are going to be the following: 0.5 rem, then 100% twice, and again 0.5 rem. Alright, so both forms are customized. Let's go ahead and display both of them. So as you can see, we have here both forms. The position of the button is not correct right now. It's because it is positioned according to the forms wrapper, and we need to position it according to the form element. In order to do that, we have to assign to the form element position absolute. So right now the forms are no longer centered on the page. Let's go ahead and fix that. First of all, I'm going to get rid of transform translate from here. And then we have to adjust the top and left positions. The top position is going to be 50% minus the half of the height of the form. As for the left position, it's going to be 50% minus the half of the width of the form. So we need the following calculations. Let's use calc function. The top position is going to be 50% minus 17.5 rem, because the height is equal to 35 rem. As for the left position, it's going to be 50% minus 25 rem, because the width of the form is 50 rem. Alright, so as you can see, the form elements are centered. Now we have to position forms in the 3D space. I'm going to rotate the sign-up form. As I said, we need to position elements in 3D space. In order to create a 3D environment, we have to use one of the CSS properties called perspective, and I'm going to assign it to the container. As the value, let's assign to it 100 rem. The form elements are grandchildren of the container, and in order to apply a 3D environment to the forms, we have to use another property called transform style with the value preserve 3D. And we have to assign it to the parent element of the forms, which is a forms wrapper. Alright, now it is time to rotate the sign-up form. I'm going to select it separately and then use transform with the rotate y function, and as the value I'm going to pass here 270 degrees. Okay, so right now the sign-up form is not visible because the sign-up form is rotated, and in order to see better why it's not visible, I can change the value. Let's set it to 250 degrees. So now you can see that form is rotated. You may think that we could use here just 90 degrees, but in that case the content of the form would be rotated in the opposite direction. So that's why we used here 270 degrees. Alright, next we have to move the sign-up form to the left side and also straight deeply in 3D space. In order to move the elements to the left side, I'm going to use translate z function with the value 25 rem. And now we have to move the element according to the x-axis with the value minus 25 rem. Okay, and lastly, let's get back here to 170 degrees. The only thing that we have to do before we program the buttons is to rotate the entire forms wrapper slightly. So let's assign to it transform, rotate Y with the value minus 10 degrees. Alright, that's it. Now we have to start to write some JavaScript. We have to attach click event listeners to the both buttons. But first of all, I'm going to select both buttons. Let's create a new variable. I'm going to call it signup_btn, and then select the element using query selector method. Let's specify here the class name signup_btn. Then I'm going to duplicate this line of code. Let's change the name of the variable. It's going to be signin_btn. As for the class name, we need signin_btn. Alright, after that, let's attach event listeners to both of them. Let's start with the signup_btn. Add here event listener method with click event and with the callback function, which will be executed once we click the sign up button. Let's duplicate this code and change signup_btn into signin_btn. Alright. So once we click the buttons, we have to rotate the forms wrapper. In order to do that, I'm going to add a new class to the forms wrapper. Then we will select forms wrapper with this newly created class in CSS, and we will define the rotation of the element. First of all, I'm going to prevent default actions of the submit buttons. If we don't do that, then the page will scroll up if we have some additional content. So we need to pass here an event object in both cases. And then we need e.prevent default. Alright, so as we said, we have to add a new class to the forms wrapper. First of all, let's go ahead and select this element, create new variable, call it forms wrapper, and then select the elements using query selector method. We need here class name forms wrapper. Then let's add a new class to this element. We need forms wrapper, followed by the property called class list, which includes all the classes that the element has. Then we need method called add, and we have to specify here the name of the class. Let's say change. Alright, let's go to the CSS file and select forms wrapper with class change. So once we click the button, we have to rotate the forms wrapper. So I'm going to pass here transform, rotate Y with the value 100 degrees. So if we click the button, then the form will rotate, but as you can see, it has changed its position. So we need to define the left position. Let's use again calc function. In this case, we need 50% plus the half of the width, 25 rem. Now everything looks fine. We have to make the effect smoother. For that, we have to use transition with the values transform 0.5 second, which is the duration, and then left again with 0.5 second. Now if I click, then the form will rotate smoothly. Right now just the sign up button is working, so let's go ahead and take care of the second button as well. In the case of the second button, we just need to remove the class change from the forms wrapper. So let's go ahead and grab this line of code, paste it down here and change add into remove. So now everything works perfectly, and actually with this project we are done. If you think that the forms are smaller on extra large screen size, then you can simply increase the font size of the HTML element. Let's change it and make it, let's say, 72.5%. So now I think it's better. And actually, we are done. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned some new stuff. If you like this tutorial, then please thumbs up, comment below, share it, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell to get notified of upcoming videos. Alright, see you next time.